Well, dear friends, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Gong. I am a partner of McDermott. I am currently stationed in Shanghai. McDermott is a law firm. We have 20 offices worldwide. We have 1,100 lawyers. We cover a wide sector of the so-called legal services. Life science is one of our strengths. We focus a lot on the life science areas. My partner, Kevin, just chaired the previous session because we have been quite active in the so-called cross-border type of transactions. Traditionally, that McDermott in China, we have a Chinese full licensed law firm. We have about 50 attorneys in China, and we do a lot of inbound work. Inbound means that we are helping the multinationals coming to China. But now, with a lot of the very active Chinese outbound investments, we are also helping and working with my other partners throughout the world to do China outbound work as well. So today it's my privilege to have a wonderful panel here, and I also want to thank Life Science Nation's invitation for me to chair the session. And last year we worked with the Life Science Nation to have the first, their first Asia, the so-called RESI conference in Shanghai in November, and then later on, 12 in November, and then 14. November 14, we have another one in Taipei. So that was like the first of its kind, of bringing the kind of, we hope to bring in the global investments or investors together. And then also we hope that a lot of good, nice, innovative products can be distributed in more countries, and to really, in our industry, it's really good because we are helping people to get healthy and to have a better life. So that is really the things we work very hard together. We also work very hard with the family offices, like this morning, Stason family, and many other family offices, focusing on the investment on the so-called early stage of the investment or the innovation. So this is going to be what I will say this afternoon. I would like to turn to my wonderful panels. This is Bao. This is Yanhuan Bao from the Guohe the funds. Later on, I will invite each of them to talk about themselves and talk about their funds. And then the next one is David Shi from Viva. It's also a company, but they have a very unique. They provide services to many of the startup companies, etc. And they are also recently listed in Hong Kong. And then Frank. Frank is also, he has a PhD degree from US, but he has also, both of them worked for multinationals for a few years, and now they are mainly focusing in China. So Frank also is working for a large fund, and they do also cross-border investment. And then also Yao. He previously worked for a Chinese company before, but now he has been managing funds doing the cross-border transactions, and his funds are also very active. So this is my initial introduction of them, and I will now turn to Yanhuan. Maybe you can introduce yourself and then go on this way. And we do this way is like he's in the very early stage, and they're going to be like later on more PE or later runs. Yes, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Yang Duan from Bohe Angel Fund. Boho is focused on very early stage investment incubation in biotech field. We are currently managing, actually we are based in China. We are managing 2 funds with a total size of 500 million RMB, which is equivalent to over 70 million US dollar. We invest in last couple 3 years. We invest in 22 startups. About 2/3 of them are innovative drug R&D companies. About 1/3 of medical device and diagnostic companies. And among our portfolio companies, about 1/3 of them are based in US or have subsidiary in US. And we are also running an incubator in Beijing. So the first term for building incubator will be open middle of this year. So and a little bit about myself. And I went to graduate school at Oregon State, molecular genetics, and then worked at the Cold Spring Harbor Lab on Long Island, neuroscience, and then moved to a startup founded by my boss at the Cold Spring Harbor Lab and a professor, MIT professor. And I moved back to China in 2012. I participated in over 20 biotech deals since I moved back to China. That's it.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, I think this works. Yeah, David Xu. I'm just working for Viva Biotech, and Viva Biotech actually as Michelle alluded to, actually we have 2 parts. Actually, the main part is the CRO business. We focus exclusively in the drug discovery section, and we have a wet chemistry, over 400 people, and biologists, over 300 biologists, and doing really well. Listed in Hong Kong Stock Exchange last year. We Cayman Island registered company. We have a holding company in Hong Kong and operating in China. Shanghai is a primary site, plus 2 other sites in the country. And starting in 2016, we dabbling into the investment part of the business, and right now we have. It's a really grow out of a necessity, and initially it was just some friends who could not find funding and come to us, and we're helping them generating data, and eventually this mushrooming into investment activity. And because we realized our CRO part only take them so far, and they need money to go out the CROs to complete the work. So we start investing money, and we start building up our back office support, helping them to register a company wherever they want to be. Now we have over 50 companies in the portfolio, including 25 we invested last year. We focus exclusively in the early phase in providing seed money and Series A financing. Occasionally we do follow to the Series B, but mostly for our internal portfolio companies. I think we don't have, we are corporate fund venture pretty much. We don't have a size of our money, but we have a budget. It's pretty sizable. I think a reasonable budget for the year. And personally, I got my undergrad degree in China and came to the U.S. typically in the graduate school, and after they stayed here, working for Novartis for over 20 years, and went back to Greece, just a couple of years ago. Just a professional, on the professional side, I'm kind of straddling between commercial and R&D. My first part of my life was in R&D, and I was kind of spent equal amount of time in the commercial side, sales, marketing, and new product planning, all these roles before I went back to China. So that's typically when people say when you're old enough, you should do investing. So here I am. Thank you.
Doesn't matter.
I don't think it works.
Anyway, I just shouted. I'm Frank Yan. I'm from 3 Ventures. 3 Ventures is doing 100% healthcare VC. Typical VC. We are majority we're investing in innovative therapeutics. We're looking for first-in-class mostly, and actually investing quite a lot in the States here. The other part is, of course, medtech, so-called, that we are looking for cross-sector innovations, biotechnology, IT. I have examples of that. We're looking for disruptive technology, not really incremental changes on that field. We have about 200 million under management across different funds. Of course, we are also raising another round for a new fund as well. That's about the fund. For myself, I have a pharma background. I've been with the farmer for about 16 years. Started here in the borders, then Roche, GSK for a little bit. Then after that, I moved to 3 Ventures for a little bit less than 2 years as the operating partner, spending half of my time in doing investment. The other half is really on the operating side, which means we incubating companies. 3 is kind of a differentiator from other funds where we incubate companies ourselves. So that's kind of a part of my job. So yeah, that'll be it.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank.
First of all, I'd like to thank Life Science Nation for kind of inviting me to this panel. I think Life Science Nation had kind of supported me throughout from my early career all the way until now. And now we're a lot larger. So thank you so much, and also thank you, Michelle, for kind of being the moderator here and kind of directing us and actually even getting us together for some food.
At least it's something I can do.
So that being said, a little bit about myself. I'm local Californian, born and raised, trained as a biomedical engineer at the UC Irvine with microfluidics, biophotonics type research. Eventually, my first job was actually in biodefense. So anthrax, bubonic plague, working with the DoD, DARPA, DHS, City of New York, US Army as essentially a government contractor. But being of Chinese descent, it was encouraging enough for me to go back to China to understand a little more. And I ultimately decided to go get my MBA from Tsinghua University and MIT Sloan. They have a joint program in China, and graduated there. And that was where I picked up my verbal Mandarin, right? When my limited Mandarin at home was always, "Hey mom, I'm home," and when is dinner ready, right? But since then, my Mandarin has certainly improved quite a bit.
I tested it yesterday.
It was not easy. Mandarin and Chinese is very hard. So, but eventually, I still decided to come back to the Bay Area, dabble a little bit in entrepreneurship, and eventually joined a group called Yangtze River Pharmaceutical, or in Mandarin, Yangtze Jiangya Jichuan. And over there, I was one of 2 people responsible doing cross-border partnerships. And at the time, they were revenue-wise, they were 4.4 billion, or 3.8 to 4.4 billion US dollars. Now they should be about maybe around 13 billion, but they're privately held family-owned, so not much is really known about them. Since then, I was able to join Life Capital, which is a great segue into Life Capital. Life Capital, when we were first founded, we were founded by 2 individuals. One goes by the name of James Zhao, another Drake Yu. James originally came from a group called Vivo Capital, and James came from IDG Capital. Both of them were very well experienced, and they came up with this investment thesis of investing in late-stage healthcare companies in China and helping them with cross-border partnerships. Because of that model worked extremely well in 2015, and we were able to evolve it quite quickly, and we were able to raise our first fund of 300 million, of which we deployed in about a year and a half, 2 years. And then we raised another fund of 420 million in 2017 that we also deployed, and just end of last year, we closed a third fund at 550 million. So that brings our total AUM to about 1.3 billion in 4 or 5 short years, which is pretty spectacular. We've also opened an office over in Menlo Park, which is, again, our directives are to invest in healthcare companies here in the US. which include pharmaceutical, medical device, and diagnostics. We are certainly a little more later stage. We prefer to have some sort of proof of concept, some human proof of concept, or some sort of validated technology, right? But we also play very strongly in cross-border partnerships. So our objective is after, even maybe possibly right even before we do investments, we want to kind of help provide a cross-border thesis, right, on how to enter China, who are the ideal partners, et cetera, and also execute on that with the support of the board as well as the management. So that being said, that's Life Capital in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. So we now have this wonderful panel, and I would ask a few questions because we are the theme of this session is cross-border partnership. So y'all, maybe I start from you. You mentioned about partnership. What do you mean by partnership? I mean, you just invest money, or that you will bring something into China, or how are you going to help your invested companies?
That's a very good question. So I think people use partnership in very broad terms, right? Broad strokes. And partnership could be as innocuous as investment, right? Or it could be possibly some sort of distribution, or even just like a supply deal of sorts, right? It essentially is tying two companies together one way or another, or two organizations together one way or another for long-term development, right? That's how I like to see it. But more namely nowadays with China partnerships, it all depends on what subsector you're looking at. I would say in a pharma space, partnerships could be investment, it could be licensing. In the medical device space, by and large, it would be investment for some sort of China right. That was the default thing, arguably. There might be some issues with that nowadays. And from a diagnostic point, I think it's kind of a little interesting as well, depending on what company you're working with. Possibly it could be some sort of supply agreement. But quite frankly speaking, at least the way I see it, the partnerships can be defined in 50, 60 different types of partnerships, right? Marketing, co-marketing, development, co-development, distribution, et cetera, et cetera. So, but at Life Capital, our primary focus is on helping our portfolio companies either work with partners in the US or vice versa, and in bringing their products, primarily bringing their products across border. So, and that has worked quite well. So I would say that is primarily our expertise.
Great. And how about David? I would like to ask you that I know that you are from a company, but I think that your company also is focusing on CRO type of service as your main service, but you are also helping many other companies that you invest. And I know that you also have like a quite creative type of the models that you do, like of course service for cash, but you also have like a service for equity. So would you like to elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So firstly, our CRO part of the business and the investment part of the business are pretty much separated. Although we kind of we need that money to invest. So, but it's a very symbiotic. And if we look at all the projects, actually we claim we are the cradle of startups, and truly we are helping startups. If we look at other projects together, if a project we really like is they happen to raise money, and we will provide the money to invest. It's a lot of risk sharing, and this is like a long-term proposition. I really trust you, trust the team, like the science, like the potential. I want to put some money now and hopefully get a better return, better than the 20% margin I'm going to make from the CRO business. Yeah. But if if some of the projects still good, but it doesn't rise up to the level that we want, and if you have money and we're gonna do it, you pay us the money and we will do the job for you. Sure. So that is kind of working together, and we also in our portfolio we have about 50 companies, about 2/3 of those companies are in the U.S. operating in the U.S. But they still use our service back in China. It doesn't matter to us where you're located, and even the 1/3 that is operating in China, are run by the returnees because local government provide a lot of incentive for them to be there. And so that is our business. It's two separate wheels per se, and driving the business to forward.
But so far it works out quite well.
It works out very well, and actually we have a pool of scientists dedicated to the incubation part of the business. But if we don't have a lot of projects, it happens to be we have more and more projects. That pool get increased bigger and bigger. For a company that wanted to use our incubation services, actually they go there, they pick their own team. We give them a lab, we give them an office, and it's a virtue to the founder, but in reality they own it. It's like a physical team as well. They are responsible for the performance appraisal, promotion, everything is the founder's responsibility. Viva is just in the back office make this happen.
Sure. Yeah. I think that from the audience, must have some. Well, I can see the Ray take. There's some investors. Some are looking for target, etc. So my follow-up questions to maybe to Frank is that because we talk about partnership, do you work with other funds, for example, other funds in U.S. To co-invest or syndicate the investment or any type of the cooperation or collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the short answer is absolutely. We always, look for partners to co-invest, to syndicate. That's absolutely. It's really, it's really balance the risk and also to get expertise, know-hows from the funds that that are new to this. And of course, we have a kind of a group that we sometimes go to, but of course, it's not necessary we'll always go to those people. But that we very much welcome the funds, the different funds that come into this to co-invest with us on the projects. Yeah, that we should look into.
Great. And Yang Fan, you were Bohe Foundation, the funds that you have a lot of very well-known LPs, right? So when you invest in a company, would you also use some of those networking to help your invested companies?
In the past, we were just a financial investor. After we started fund a couple years later, we based our strategy. Most of our LPs are large pharmaceutical companies or biotech companies in China, like Henry, Xiansheng Sincere, and Wuxi Tigerman, and BGI. So after we invested the company, we want to use our experience and our experience from our LPs and their resource network to help our company to create value for them, not just a financial investor.
Thank you. Now, we are in U.S., so we know that they have been ups and downs in terms of the China-U.S. relationship and the trade war and all the things. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's like a deal is signed, and sometimes it's like a break again. So I like to ask all of my friends here, because of this trade war, will that affect your investment to any extent at all? Who wants to start?
I don't think so. At least in the investments that we have been involved on this, superannuation in different nations, we don't really think so. We believe it's. Myself is really in the therapeutics. Drug is a drug, disease is a disease. It really doesn't have nation or something. And we primarily, in the therapeutics, actually we do things a little bit more creative that help the companies in a meaningful way actually to access China for the US company, of course. For example, we invest in a biotech company here for brain tumor, and we formed a joint venture with that company in China, helping them on the preclinical development side, say the R&D enabling activities. We founded actually independently from China, use the RMB, money to that joint venture, and so that the U.S. company doesn't have to spend their funds on this activity. And thanks to the regulatory change in China, that the package that you generate in China using the CROs, for example, and they are all good for submission to the agency. US FDA, Chinese FDA, and the EU, for example, for the package we have generated, it's all high quality. That's one thing. Secondly, we are helping them to access more on the Chinese population. For example, that we're gonna have one protocol. It's gonna be for the for different countries. That's one protocol. It's not like we are gonna do separate independent trial for China only. That's not what we're doing. And we have one protocol, and the patient population in China is still much larger. But considering the disease, there may be some differences, but in general, it's still much larger. And with this setup, then you can enroll patients much faster. Your clinical trial is going to be much shorter. Given the quality are good because you have one protocol, you have the operational sort of angle to make sure to ensure those are all okay. Then in the end, you're shortening your clinical trial. I mean, half sometimes, depending on the indication. Then time is money really in our line of biotech investment. Then that's how we see it, and I'm not seeing any of the tension really inhibiting what we are doing. And actually, this is what we are trying to help the companies in the US, to so-called access China in a really meaningful way. So that'd be my take.
Anyone has any different comments?
It's not different. I
Okay.
totally agree with Frank that from an investment perspective, the impact is minimum. If trade war is about trade, the investment is not trade. So I think there may be something that company to consider is the supply chain further down the road. CMO particularly if you want to manufacture a product. But it's trade war is all about tariffs, right? If you're not moving goods around, it's okay. But my worry actually is more like a long term. It's if the trade war further continuous and become a cold war, as many people try to say, and then the China market and the rest of the world become two totally isolated market. That could be a big issue.
How about Yang?
So I think on my perspective, I think the message that business will prevail, right? From a medical device standpoint, from a therapeutic standpoint, you can see that it's largely been unaffected. But from the other different subsectors in healthcare, life science, I would say medical device has been impacted a little bit. We can see from our portfolio companies, and I can't say it's. We can see the reason why they want to do it, but then it's just. But I think sophisticated organizations have ways to minimize that type of risk. So, but I would certainly agree. In the therapeutic space, the trade war has largely been unaffected because when you look at it, the U.S. From my own personal perspective, I don't believe the U.S. government would compromise anything that would harm the patients in the U.S. Right? We know of one company that brings products from China, right? That's on the shortage list. They're the only company that does it. If the U.S. that's actually not on the tariff list. If the U.S. government was to bring a tariff and they were not able to bring that in, you're literally affecting hundreds of thousands of patients because they have no access at all to the shortage anymore. So by and large, from a tariff standpoint, I would say if it's a therapeutic side, you should be generally okay, right? But from a medical device side or diagnostic side, you might have something that you might need to rethink where you're at. So.
Thank you. Then
Alex,
Yes.
Probably I'm the only one from firm with only RMB fund.
I was going to talk about that.
I do feel there's a huge impact on the our investment strategy. We invest two startups which are founded by professors from MIT and Harvard in 2009. But there's a huge impact on our investment. The professors and scientists, especially when they are American scientists, they are worried, and the startups, they are also worried about taking money from funds with Chinese background. And we are, at the other side, we are also concerned that, after spend months of hard work and the deal could be blocked by the CFIUS. Yeah, so
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 from your side, because you have IB funds, so you will be a little bit more concerned about, or a little bit more, you probably need to do more due diligence, etc.
I'm as active as before.
Yes.
So I know a large pharmaceutical company in China which have investment office based in Boston. They started investing last year in 2009, and they talked with companies only about partnership, no investment.
I see. Yeah. Well, sometimes I've been asked all the time by many of the clients or potential clients that still, whether China still allows the money in IB funds to invest abroad. The answer is still yes. China still encourage inbound investment and then outbound investment. But for the outbound investment right now, probably place a little bit tighter control on those like the spending on some of the, buying of football, not so well known football club or something with 1 billion or something. But this type of deal probably will be stopped. But for the getting the real nice asset in the life science sectors and more advanced and innovative products, etc., those will still be allowed. It's just like, yes, going through the safe to go things out, maybe takes a little bit longer, but this longer is not really that long, or it's not forbidden. Yeah, so this is something that I want to clarify. And the other thing is that because of this recently, a lot of things about the trade war thing, etc. But that will also impact on a few things like people in the U.S. will think about China. How are you going to protect our IP? If we provide the license, etc., will those be protected? I like to hear from. You start from David.
All right. So definitely, for startup, you don't have anything but IP, right? The ideas, and Viva is started as a CRO. For CRO company, IP protection is always, from other client. Our first thing is how are you going to protect my IP?
Yes.
So actually, we are better covered. But still, when you come to investment, it's how about cross contamination, all these things. You can tell people to the nth level, how you want what you are trying, what steps you're taking, you put in place to address the issue. But I think the best practice we found is since we have so many companies operating in the U.S. and many of them are university professors or the people who are here. And just encourage them to talk to each other. And if they want a reference, give them tons of reference. Whoever, oftentimes they find, oh, I know this guy. So they just pick up the phone and call. I think this is most effective.
Great. How about you, Frank?
I should say, I came back from the States to China about 10 years or 12 years ago. At that time, I worked for larger pharma. It was really quite sensitive in a way in terms of IP protection. That question came up. I should only say occasionally. That was 10 years ago. When the time really passed by, that question really subsided. I rarely, when by the time I left the big pharma, it's almost never being asked. For the past few years, I don't think this would be the issue. At least from a big pharma perspective, which I should say ultra sensitive in a way. About the IP situation specifically in China, this region. And right now, if we talk to biotech here, because we invest quite a lot here, if we talk to the biotech companies here, not really. Actually, the IP question is from us, not really from the biotech. They have sort of kind of a concern or worry, if you investors and the IP, what's going to happen? Not really. Rarely will be asked this type of question. Actually, the other way around. We ask them, how's your IP situation? Do you have anything well prosecuted in China? Or some of the companies have kind of an IP or originated from the region when your project moving on. We will actually encourage them to do them well, to do them properly, find a good lawyer, instead of the other way around, actually pushing them to make sure those things are in order. So I don't think really it's an issue.
Great. Now you want to add something?
Yeah, so resonating exactly what David and Frank were mentioning is that in reference to patents, you definitely want patents in China. I think I've been kind of looking at these partnership deals for about like 9 years now, and at the very beginning, around maybe 2011. There are a bunch of these companies. Every year I might see maybe about 300 companies, and there will always be 10 or 20 companies that would not have a China patent, right? And we can't do anything with that, right? Like, it's very depressing because they might have a great technology, and there's actually, a rumor is, there's actually some patent trolls in China. They do it here in the US as well, which is, if you don't patent something elsewhere, they just copy your patent and they just patent it in China. So you have to act fast, you have to find the right people to work with. And McDermott, pitch for McDermott here is that you guys are great at patents, right? So you guys certainly could reach out to Michelle and kind of ask her whether or not.
See, I invited him for lunch. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I need to emphasize, patents aren't crucial. If you don't have patents, no one's really going to talk to you. Like back in the day, again, 10 years ago, there might have been some issues, but China evolved very rapidly, and pretty much nowadays it's not.
Great. And Yang Huan, that you work for China funds, in terms of IP protection, I mean, how will you require your investment company how to protect their IP, and I mean, how do you handle this situation?
First of all, I would say as an investor from China, we take IP protection very seriously. It's not about the patent itself, but also about the source of patents. We want to make sure our portfolio companies got their patents or rights from university, from somewhere legally. It's hard to believe. For many, we heard many horrible stories. American Chinese professors and Chinese investors got questioned at the
order.
Got the customer. We want our firm and our portfolio companies and do not violate law and regulations everywhere. So we don't want to run into trouble. So we take IP protection very serious. When we invest, we always have a lawyer work with us.
Great. So in terms of the IP protection always being like raised, I think over the years I have been a long-term observer of the China development in the past 30, 40 years. I Yes, in the beginning, maybe there are some infringement issue here and there, especially on the low-tech side. But on the newer side, I think now it's not just me too. It's really like China really focus, especially for the investor side, really focusing on the most state-of-art, most innovative products for the technologies. Yes, and so protection is really one way to help the target company to grow. And I would like to pause here a little bit as to inviting the audience to ask many of my, all my very experienced panels, any of the questions that you may have about China or the cross-border partnership. Anyone? Yes?
I have a question. So related to the due diligence, if it's cross-border, how much different from the like a fund peer investment? Is it due diligence will be quite different or similar, or what's additional, what's the same one?
You mean due diligence from the investment in the U.S. or investment in China?
Yeah, cross-border investment here versus fund investment. Is it due diligence because all the work will be different or quite similar?
Who would like to take this question? David?
We have the same criteria. It doesn't matter really. It's where the idea, where the project come from. We have to maintain some consistency. I think it's not where the project is. It's about how depend on the early phase and late phase projects. It's where the emphasis is going to be. And for the early phase, when you don't have a lot of data, so the emphasis, we're playing a lot of emphasis on the team, the founding team, the founder, and the team, the executive team. The experience, the execution capability, and your influence level. If your LinkedIn doesn't have over 500 contacts, that means probably your influence sphere is not that big. So, just as an example, I think it's about how you manage the level of the due diligence rather than the criteria differences.
Well, now I want to mention about how do you do due diligence.
I think that it's the same. For a Chinese company, actually, we emphasize a little more about the competitiveness globally. With overseas companies enter Chinese market easier and easier. The Chinese company we invest in must be able to compete, globally, and also it's better if they can take advantage of the expanding market, of U.S. market and global market.
Now you want to add something about due diligence?
I think you guys hit the points pretty
Okay.
good.
Frank?
Yeah, same from same.
Same.
I don't see any difference, in terms of the region where the innovation is, but the innovation itself might dictate different, ways of the due diligence.
Sure. Great. And now we are in the beginning of 2020. Anyone wants to predict on something like this year you will be more active in terms of investment or be more conservative because of some certain situation? Well, what will be your situation? Now I'm starting from you. More active or same?
I would like to share a very interesting trend pattern I see in the Chinese market. I would say more and more successful entrepreneurs have been entering investment business, and they got wealthy after the company they founded became public or got acquired. They bring in money, experience, and network to the investment business. It's very good for the startups.
Well, same thing. I think it's the environment, particularly in China today, is really it's right for the startups there. It's a great environment, and the money is still there,
Yes.
and even the scrutiny is not as liberal as it used to be. Used to have an idea and have a person being working outside of China for a while, then they give you money, but not the case anymore. So it's going to be it's a good time.
Yeah, from our side, we have been focusing on first-in-class and innovation. Brian, I think into this new year, that I think we probably be a bit more aggressive, into access really true innovation at the early stage, because you have to be really at the cutting edge of the science in order to access it. Then you invest it early. Then you can realize the whatever the financial gain or anything that will be realistic. We're never gonna do Me Too. Before there will be too. A lot of investment from China are focusing on any so-called clinically validated kind of targets. But with the those procurement kind of government procurement things going on, that would not fly at all, and that is forcing all of the investors to think about it, to access innovation, to do new drug, innovative drug early on. For us, we'll be even, and we hope we're going to be again ahead of the curve, even more so. So my view will be, we hope to incubate even more, like what David is doing with their vehicle.
Great. Now, how about raising funds? Can you raise more funds, or you want to mention about some of your recent funds?
Oh yeah, well, we just closed a $550 million fund in last year, but I think if we were to look into the future in 2020, I would say from an investment standpoint, or from an investment and cross-border standpoint, we're always active, right? We're always active. We're always looking around for some good deals and for some. But I think the big question is in terms of investment. I think with the science, the valuation curves really level out with good science, right? Because good science is always active. But from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I'd like to emphasize that this year is an election, right? There's always going to be some market volatility. There's always going to be some questions, and arguably we have to see where things go. I think there's also some questions on the trade war. There's also some questions on other stuff, right? That it's always good to plan for the future. But I think generally speaking, I think a lot of people. I think it's worth noting that it's going to be an election. Just emphasizing on that.
So, thank you. And I know that Kenneth has raised the flag saying that the time is out. I hope that you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much for your coming. And I also thank you for my panels that, we did prepare in advance, but I hope that we provide good information to you. And later on, I think this is talk about cross-border partnership. I think the most important thing is that we know each other better. And then some of the things that actually I know that Frank's fund, the Yale's fund, they also co-invest in some of the projects together. So I think that's really the things that we hope that the investment community, not just in China, but also offshore, can also work together. So thank you so much, and wish you all luck. Yeah, and we are about to have the Chinese New Year, so Happy New Year to you all. Thank you so much.